Here's a song that will get your heart rate up. Every time I sing the word up, reach for the stars. Every time I sing the word down, touch the ground. The rest of the time, march with your knees high. Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, up, they go down to the down, down. They enchant all the ladies and see all the scenes with their up to the up, up.
Hello and welcome to Powell River Airport in Powell River, British Columbia, Canada, home of the Westview Flying Club and my Seaplane, Searey experimental airplane. 6.5 months in the making. No, that's being overly optimistic. About 6.5 years in the making. So I'm on an ambitious schedule now to get this build finished. And I'm making good progress, but still lots of challenges, lots of problems, lots of fun, and a few laughs on the way. I'm Bob Grantham, and this is my YouTube channel, Spirit of Mackenzie. So please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, a like if you can, and join the fun. Well, it should prove to be an interesting day in the airplane factory today. You'll recall from my earlier videos that the fuel system has already been proven out. There's about 5 gallons of fuel in the 23-gallon fuel tank. The hoses don't leak, and the electric fuel pump is able to push the fuel back to the mechanical fuel pump on the engine. There's also brake fluid in the braking system. It doesn't leak, and the brakes seem to work. So now it's time to address the cooling of the engine, the coolant. The heads on the Rotax 912 ULS are liquid cooled. You can see a liquid cooling hose coming in here. That's the heads, they're liquid cooled. The actual cylinders are air cooled, ram air cooled. The coolant specification calls for something like this, Dexcool Prestone 50/50 premixed antifreeze coolant. And it's going to take about 1.5 liters or 0.4 US gallons to fill the system. The coolant goes in the top of the engine into this little expansion tank, and also there's a plastic overflow tank down there that I have to fill halfway up, I believe. Okay, let's get at her. Since this is a first installation of this engine and all the hoses and the radiator, I better just put a little bit in first and look for leaks before I continue. The water pump is on the front end of this engine in the pusher mode. Otherwise it would be on the back end if it was a tractor. But for me, this is the front end. That's the water pump. The hose to the radiator. Back from the radiator, other side of the water pump, and all these little hoses come to the cylinders out into the expansion tank.
Up and down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up and down, they're frightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines. They can fly upside down with their feet in the air. They don't think of danger, they really don't care. Newton would think he had made a mistake.
Bloody hell. And I thought I had more than twice as much coolant as I needed. And I'm sure this is probably the smallest size container you can buy. Okay, run to the store, because even though it overflowed, it's still not full in the expansion tank. There's nothing yet in the bottle. So, run to the store. Well, starting this day off with a bit of a head scratcher. But first, check out my shirt. Alright, so much for my six-pack. Yeah, yesterday I put the antifreeze, the engine coolant, into the system. Made a basic mistake when I started. The engine literature says 1.5 liters is required, but what I didn't really think about was that's only the engine. Of course, does not include the radiator, which is probably another liter or so. And then, not until I got here this morning, did I kind of recall that there's a cabin heater on this plane as well, at the bow of the boat, and connected by hoses. So that's maybe why I ended up with almost 4 liters of coolant versus the 1.5 expected liters going into the system yesterday. But anyway, got that in yesterday, left it overnight to see if there's any leaks. And surprisingly, when I got here, I got a head scratcher. Well, maybe not surprisingly. This is building a plane. Every day is a head scratcher. I'm amazed I have any hair left. So when I left yesterday, this little Nalgene plastic coolant bottle was 3/4 full of coolant. You can just see just a trace amount in the bottom now. And when I took the little pressure tank lid off, no trace. So where did the coolant go? There's nothing on the ground. So checking around the plane and remembering that there's a heater up front. Check that. No evidence of any leaks on the heater. No coolant on the bow deck floor. Bow hull floor, sorry. But lo and behold, under the fuel tank, we got coolant. How the heck did it get there? Now that would explain why the overflow plastic tank is empty. At least there's probably that amount down there. But it must have leaked out of the system somewhere. Well, that's a true mystery. I've gone over the whole cooling system, from the bow where the heater is, the hoses, through the fuselage, up the pylon. I've gone all over the radiator and all over the engine, and there's no sign of any place that leaked this 1/2 liter of coolant, which I took out of the hull plug down there. All I can really do is pour more coolant in the expansion tank at the top of the engine till it's full to the cap again, and fill the little overflow Nalgene plastic bottle till it's half full, and then I guess somehow keep an eye on it and see if it's gonna leak again. Bizarre. Comments below, please. Okay, here we go, trying to fill up the system again and see if I've got a problem with leaks. Gravity. I hate gravity. Let me know if you see any coolant spurting out somewhere, will you? Whoa! I saw that overflowing. Okay, so I'm right up to the top of the spout of the expansion tank. I'll just see if that goes down. A little bit in the hose that overflows. If I do this slowly enough, it should overflow on its own and not overflow onto the engine like that. Right, Bob, good job. Gravity. I'm just going to let it sit at this point with atmospheric pressure on it and see if it finds its way out some leak somewhere. Don't fight gravity. Let it work for you. That's a sweet sight this morning. See the orange liquid there? That's the coolant in the overflow bottle. And it has maintained its level overnight for the first time in a couple of days. That's because I finally found the leak in the cooling system. A lot of coolant was wasted in the endeavor, but it turns out the leak was just a little dripper right here on this hose, on this fitting, going into the cabin heater. And it was such a small drip, so slow, I didn't notice it, couldn't see it down in the bottom of the hull. I couldn't see it coming out here underneath the carpet. Couldn't see it until it pooled up in the back. But with the help of a friend, and talking over the system with a friend, touching everything, discussing all the possibilities, the leak miraculously was found. So I tightened these up significantly, and all the other ones on the system refilled, let it stand overnight, and I now have a good start on this day. An additional bit of help from the friend I had looking over the coolant system, looking for the leak with me, was one of the first questions he asked me was, did I have a vent in the top of the coolant recovery bottle? And that's where I kind of hit myself on the top of the head, because no, I don't. This coolant bottle lid came from Progressive Aerodyne, the kit supplier, not from Rotax, the engine supplier. And there was nothing in the Progressive Aerodyne Searey installation manual that talked about a vent. However, in the Rotax engine installation manual, which I really didn't get around to until recently looking at, because I was following the Searey installation and assembly manual, it very clearly points out it'd be a good idea to put a vent in the top of that cap. In the case of when the engine is cooling down, you might get steam flashing off in the coolant recovery bottle, and it needs to vent. So I'm going to put that vent in. At one time, when I was looking for that reason for the disappearing coolant, I thought maybe that vent had something to do with it. I don't think it did. It's just something I should do, and I'm thankful to my friend for helping me find the leak and pointing out, reminding me that I should have put this vent in, which I'll do now.
He had made a mistake to see those young men and the chances they take.
Now, this is something my brother taught me. He pointed out, from watching my earlier videos on putting the fuel line system in, that you shouldn't use with these hose clamps a slotted screwdriver, because as you're putting pressure on it, it so easily slips and gouges your fingers. These things are designed to work with a nut driver. I hadn't noticed that. I thought this nut was, or screw head was round, but no, it's not. It's a 1/4 inch nut. So much safer than using a screwdriver. My fingers will thank me for this, I'm sure. Now, this is actually a compression fitting nut, but which is not really what it's designed to do here, just being a fixing nut. I don't know how else you put it, but as I found working with all these fittings, that these, trying to match the threads up of these different fittings to the different nuts, especially when you're doing something a little unusual, which is what I'm doing here, but I'm precisely following the Rotax instructions. So it's all their fault if it screws up. Put that on there. Teflon tape on there because it's not like it's going to leak. Maybe I should use a nut driver for that. But yeah, let's just go with the flow. Oh, seems to tighten up okay. And it looks just like the Rotex manual diagram. Good. So now what I'm going to do is put this on top of the recovery bottle. This comes down below the engine somewhere. You cut it off to the right length, and then you put a little notch in here, which helps apparently to protect icing in the exit hole of the hose. Okay, I shall do that. This is Haslam Lake. It's the water supply for the municipality of Powell River. When we were children, this lake was open to motorboats, and this is where we all learned to water ski. Spent many great hours on this lake with family, and later when I was more independent with my friends, boating on this lake. Used to be a big campground here, picnic ground, but now it's much more restricted in access. Boats only with no gasoline engines. And so I have to find out what the ruling would be for airplanes. No doubt you can make an emergency landing here, but I don't know if you'd be allowed to do normal water operations with an amphibious seaplane. There's one of my sons and my sister are out paddleboarding today. Just gorgeous. It's hot, just enough of a breeze to keep us a little cool, to blow the paddle boards around. Very nice lake. Just 5 minutes by road east of Powell River. Okay, here we go with the next step of this exciting adventure of putting the fluids into the Spirit. This time it's going to be oil. So the 912 ULS has a dry sump engine. So the oil is stored in this reservoir. There's the dipstick. The system holds approximately 3 to 3.5 liters. That's just the engine. Doesn't include the cooler, and probably doesn't include something else that's going to gobble up an enormous amount of oil. So anyway, I'm prepared to put 4 liters into the tank. So what I'm doing here is putting oil into the reservoir. Then I have to purge the system, which we'll get to when we get to. Let's just get the oil in the can first. But where's my funnel? Here we go. Up, down, up, down. Same color, but different funnel from the one I use for the coolant. Okay, here we go. 1 liter. Ooh, Bobby. Slow down, mate. This is the specified by Rotex preferred lubricating oil for the 912 ULS engine. Not readily available, had to order from Aircraft Spruce. Like 90% of the parts of this plane, other than the basic kit, were Aircraft Spruce. Thank you. You provide good service. One liter.
Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, up, they go down to the down, down. They enchant all the ladies and see all the scenes with their up to the up, up, and their down to the down, down. Up, down.
Okay, that's right on the top of the flat part, so that indicates the maximum. So that's 3 liters in the system. Okay, so I'm just going to let that sit for a while before I embark on the purging. Next step. Don't go so fast, Bob.
Flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up, down.
So I've arrived in the South Terminal at the Vancouver International Airport, the site of the original Vancouver Airport. And here in a display case is a beautiful model of the Supermarine Stranraer, operated by Queen Charlotte Airlines back in the 1940s, 1950s. And this particular model is carrying the registration marks Charlie Foxtrot Bravo X-Ray Oscar, the same registration marks I have for the Spirit of Mackenzie, which I'm currently planning to paint along the same scheme as this model of the Alaska Queen. It's always an interesting day in the airplane factory, otherwise known as the hangar for Spirit of Mackenzie. Especially interesting today, because today we're going to work on the EFIS, the Engine Flight Information System, basically the flight computer for both monitoring the engine and the flight and navigation. And I'm putting this in now. Well, it's got to go in sometime, but particularly I'm putting this now so I can get oil pressure reading for purging the engine, and following that, when I start the engine, I'm going to need cylinder head temperature and RPM as well. Oh. All switches off. Okay. Electrical system on the right side of the master.
Generator. Gear.
Something is on. That was the fuel pump was on. Brilliant,
Gear.
Bob. Okay, alright. Hold in the trouble warning button. Hey. I saw something on the sky view. Whoa, this is exciting. According to the manual, this is exactly what I'm supposed to see. Ho, ho, ho. Well, there's the startup page of the EFIS. Isn't that brilliant? Exactly what it shows in the manual. Well, I feel like I should just stop right here for the day. This is like probably as good as a success I can get. Oh, come on, Bob, be brave. You know, that's not good. I actually did a pre-start check. You probably saw me run my fingers over the button and saying all switches off. And in fact, there was 2 switches on. The fuel pump was on and the strobe light was on. Not only should I have felt that, I should have seen it, and I should have seen the green lights. This does not bode well. Sharp up now, Bob. Sharpen up.
They're frightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines. Up, down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up, down, they're frightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines.
Charlie. Foxtrot. No. Go back. Charlie. Hyphen. Okay. Hyphen. Foxtrot. Foxtrot, yeah. Foxtrot.
Flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up and down, they're frightfully keen. Those magnificent men in their flying machines. They can fly upside down with their feet in the air. They don't think of danger, they really don't care. Newton would think he had made a mistake to see those young men and the chances they take. Those magnificent men in their flying machines.
Ah, hey, hey, baby. What's caution? What is it, caution? Why am I caution? I need a compass. Okay. I got battery. I got current. I got oil. Why don't I have oil pressure?
They really don't care. Newton would think he had made a mistake to see those young men and the chances they take.
So, lots happened in this episode, making some progress towards my next milestone of getting the engine started. Got some coolant into the engine, got the oil into the engine, fired up the Dynon EFIS so that I can at least get some readings off the engine, such as oil pressure, to allow me to do the oil purge, and then cylinder head temperatures and RPM at least for when I start up the engine. So all good there. And in parallel, moving ahead with finalizing the paint scheme for the Spirit of Mackenzie. After a brief trip to Vancouver South Terminal to see the model of the Alaska Queen of the Queen Charlotte Airlines, otherwise known as the Whistling Shithouse, I then colored up my layout here, showing that I'm going to use the basic gray fabric color I already have on the plane, and the white fiberglass hull and white pylon. And then I'm going to use yellow paint as a highlight on the sponsoons and on the wingtips and on a banner on the tail, highlighted in black. And then along both sides I'm going to have a large vinyl decal in black. I'll probably have Spirit of Mackenzie instead of Queen Charlotte Airlines in yellow running along the sides. And then the focus will be the Queen Charlotte Airlines crest. You can't see it here, of course, but I like this crest because of its kind of a historical styling, and the fact that it's got in the crest is indigenous war canoe figure, which is entirely appropriate because of the native history in this area all up and down the west coast of British Columbia. So there you have it. That's enough. See you next time. Please subscribe, and if you like, share with your friends. I can use all the help and support and encouragement that you can provide. Thank you so much. This is Bob Grantham, Spirit of Mackenzie.